it's Kirk. It's Dumb Test Late. Jumping off real quick to give a quick content warning about this episode. It's an older story idea, but I will be mentioning spiders. That's what the story is based around. So if you have an issue with spiders, go ahead, skip this one. Go back on the next one. The next one, I'll be talking about demons and possessions and exorcisms. If that's what you're into, you special person. But yeah, I'm talking about spiders on this one. So if that's not your thing, you won't hurt my feelings. Skip this one. I get it.
Now time for some interactive fun.
Well, hey, like I said in the beginning, it's me, Kirk, back again. If you're still here, you're cool with spiders or they don't bother you that much. But I know I get it for some people, arachnophobia is a real thing. But yeah, my story idea for this episode, we're still in 2025, by the way, references spiders a lot because this is an older idea. So season 3, this season, episode 6 was last year. It was one of my Halloween ideas that I did called Vampyr's Echo, where it was a spooky story idea that I did Halloween. I did 4 though. I think three or 4 of them I did. And I wanted to continue them. Like I said in the last few episodes for this year, I want to set the goal for myself of doing at least 2 episodes per like the story ideas I have. So I did Vampyr's Echo last year and I liked the story, but I didn't really see where it went. It was kind of a beginning, a setup in it, and that was it. I kind of was threw out some ideas for like the action or the conflict of the story, but I didn't really have it at that point. But now I kind of do. And like I said, it's kind of based on spiders. So a bit of history. The Vampyr's Echo I had was the story idea was based around me creating a new mythology, a new rules for vampires. I kind of get tired of the same old, they want to suck your blood vampire who lives in a coffin and all this stuff. It's redone and done so much. I loved some of them, but the basic vampire mythology has mostly been the same. And I referenced this. I was reading this book because I think I referenced it when I was doing the Halloween and the spooky ideas last year. I was reading this book called A Clutch of Vampires, when it talks about like the original vampire stories. And there's one that's really stuck with me called A Certain Shoemaker. And that's one of the kind of origin vampire stories where it's not even referenced as a vampire. It's more of there was a certain shoemaker who passed away, but the legend is that he kept coming back to life and haunting this small town he was a part of, way back when. And the towns really decided to dig up his body and basically disfigure his body because they believed he was some kind of creature that could come back to life and suck the life out of people and essentially suck the blood, which is basically like one of the origin vampire stories. And I like that idea because I was saying that the story I was doing was that this is where like the vampire curse would start. Like the townspeople wouldn't know that digging up this person who actually is a vampire sends the curse into other people in the town that are alive. It keeps the curse going. It could have died with that certain shoemaker who was buried in the ground, but the kind of the fear of the unknown and the fear of death at that time, kind of, basically people digging up they were disturbing the dead, which you're not supposed to do. So that led to my vampire story where I created this new mythology of vampires, that they basically, instead of them being actual like beings that live in this during the day they can't be out in the sun, they live in coffins, and at night they come out and haunt and stalk and kill people and suck their blood and all that stuff. That basically vampires have basically turned into this very weak being and they live inside of people. That's why the story was titled Vampyr's Echo, because they live inside of you. They feed off of you, your life force. Go back to the episode. I explained it a lot more. But the part I wanted to add to build out the story and, kind of hit my goal of doing at least 2 episodes per idea was that, and again, mentioning spiders because there is something called the vampire spider. It's like the jumping vampire spider. I think the scientific name, forgive me if I get this wrong, Evarcha Vampyr. Because my new idea is going to be called Evarcha Vampyr. So it's going to be that the vampire can transmit themselves, I should say, in this lowest form as a jumping spider, because that will be the way they jump from host to host is through this jumping vampire spider. Because the vampire spider does suck human blood. It feeds off of, humans, vampires. That's what they do when they trap insects into the web. They suck their blood. But this one specifically I don't think they only, look it up, Google it, kids. But I'm taking from that this jumping spider is basically a vampire, and that's the lowest form of the vampire. The vampire is basically, like I said before, I'm not trying to make a Parasite movie, but it basically lives in its lowest, weakest form inside this jumping spider until it can get attached to a human, and it can pass and live within this human, feeding off their life force. So my title was going to be Evarcha Vampyr, which basically means jumping vampire because it's jumping spider. And the alternate title is going to be called, or the tagline title is going to be called The Spider Bites Once, because once the spider bites you, it transmits the curse of that vampire into you, and you unwillingly become the host of this new vampire. So I don't know what title I would go with, Vampyr's Echo or Evarcha Vampyr, or however this story, organically grows. But that's the Vampyr's Echo is the old one. This is the part I'm adding now is specifically called Evarcha Vampyr, The Spider Bites Once. So the last episode, I talked about what the conflict would be, that the human host unwillingly is hosting this vampire that's feeding off of them. That's why they're always tired. They seem like they get sleep at night, but they're super tired during the day. They don't realize that this vampire is basically slowly drip feeding off of their life force. That's what the vampire is doing in this really small, weak, shrunken down form within the human body. And this happens a lot and people don't know. But the vampire will do this enough where and I think I base it around Halloween with, the full moon or something like that. I'm like creating a new mythology for vampires that they would basically feed enough slowly, drip feed, like I said, that maybe every 30 days, every once a year or something like that they could take a full form while the human is asleep and basically use their body and basically transform into what the human version of the vampire would be, using the human life force that they're hosting, that they're kind of, the host of that the human host. The vampire takes a full human looking life form, I should say. Sorry if that was confusing. It confused me. Sorry. But like this one night a year, this happens, Halloween night, of course, because I had to base the spooky story around Halloween. And I was thinking that could be the conflict, that the human host doesn't know what's going on and he gets tracked by these, vampire hunters or something like that. But of course, I was listening to this podcast that they were talking about this serial killer that's kind of unknown and basically still out there, maybe. I can't remember exactly what the time period this happened. What this serial killer may be. It may be the same person that killed 4 people, and they're kind of related somehow. But one of the stories is that the police kind of have an idea who this is, but they don't have enough, concrete proof to charge them and convict them. But one of the stories is that they worked with 2 of these people that went missing. I think it was like at a concert hall or a movie place or some kind of event thing, where 2 younger people were hanging out, and then they, like, one night after work, and then they disappeared. And it's assumed they were killed. But they worked with the suspected person, and the person that's suspected of killing them, maybe, their excuse was they took a nap at work. Like, it was like working a late shift or something like that. And they took a nap in a quiet area after the night shift, so they wouldn't be tired driving home or something like that. And then the 2 coworkers who disappeared that same night. And I was thinking to use that real world situation in my story, where my character doesn't know that this vampire within them is using their body to commit like these crimes. Like the vampire, let's say it's every 30 days, every full moon, that they could use the human host form and hunt at night. So the vampire could do a full killing to, suck blood, take life force or whatever from other humans. And the human host body does not know what's going on, but something happens where they're seen or they're suspected because, they have these relations or close relationships with the people who are killed, but the human host body was asleep. So my character is like helping the police, like unwillingly knowing that this vampire killed their friends or their coworkers or whatever, but they were asleep. They literally were asleep at the time, but they didn't know that a vampire was controlling their body and all this. It's weird stuff. I'll figure it out somehow. But that could be the conflict where it would be like armchair detectives or podcasters, like, true crime podcasters who are trying to figure out unsolved crimes. They, connect all the dots to the connections to my host character who moves around a lot, but then they connect all the, the red string on the, the diagram, that famous thing that's always used in TV and movie shows, to this one person who's my character, because all these people are being killed and it's unknown and they think it's a serial killer, but my character isn't actually doing it. It's the vampire within them that's doing it, but they are unwilling hosts. So these true crime podcasters, these detectives, kind of are hunting down my character, and my character realizes it because they finally make the connection, or something happens where they see what the vampire is using their body for. And the vampire, they kind of have a meeting where it's, that thing where you're looking in the mirror to look at a reflection of yourself, but then the vampire shows himself to my host character. But then you find out that they're being hunted, or they're being tracked down by, the police or the FBI or something like that, or these, vigilantes that are coming to, because it gets out word online that, like, a picture of the host character, that this is the person that's a serial killer, and people take the matter into their own hands and they're hunting my character. They find out where he is, and they're hunting him. But the vampire kind of needs this host to live. So they kind of strike a deal where he lets the vampire take over somehow to basically escape this, these vigilantes that's hunting him. It's like a physical chase and all that stuff. But then my character doesn't want to be involved in killing people. So the ending would be, to jump to the end after this conflict, that my character basically, he finds out from the vampire that'll know that, like, if the character dies, that basically the vampire can just jump host to someone else, and this will keep going on. But then my character somehow realizes he doesn't want that to happen, because he doesn't want more people to die. Because the vampire is like, I'm just going to keep doing this. No matter the host, you're just my current host. And he feels used, and he feels like he's, somehow involved in these innocent people dying. So he figures out a way to basically put himself in a coma or something like that, a medical induced coma or something like that, which keeps the vampire within him in a comatose state also. So it can never escape. It can never take control. He does something like that. It's a story. It's magic. Don't look too into the real science and the real meaning of it, or the real explanation of it. It's fantasy. It's fiction, guys. So that will be the ending. So the conflict is my character is hunted down because people figured out that he's connected, and they assume he's a serial killer that's on the run, but he realizes that it's the vampire. That's the at some point he gets bit by the Evarcha Vampyr, the jumping vampire spider, and he's the host to this vampire. And so the way to stop it is to keep this vampire within him. He has to basically keep himself in this comatose state. And of course you have that shot at the end of if this is a movie, my host character in a hospital bed, and you can tell they're in a coma. You have that little machine next to him beeping. But then right before the title, the credits roll, my character opens his eyes, but it's bloodshot red eyes, and it's the vampires. It's like, it's never. I always like those scenes in movies where you think the movie's ending, but it's not really ended. So yeah, that's my story. That's my second part to the Vampyr's Echo. This jumping spider story. The spider bites once. Looking up, I've found, because I always try to, when I get ideas like this, I always try to look up if it's been done before. If I'm just, it's some idea I forgot about that I, subconsciously seeped into my brain. So I always look and see what's already been done for this idea. There's a scene in a movie, The Vampire's Assistant, about a spider that is like a vampire. The spider in the movie is called Madame Octa, and this is a whole thing where I like watched the scene on YouTube. It didn't seem like a good movie. I didn't want to waste my time on it, but like this kid is kind of transfixed on the spider, and he steals the spider and takes it to school, and it bites somebody, and I think it kills them or turns them into a vampire or something. I mean, it was from 2009. If you ever want to look it up, it's called The Vampire's Assistant. I don't think it did well. I think it was a book series also. There's also a Spanish movie. It's called The Vampire Spider. I think it's a teenager who goes into the woods and gets bit by a vampire spider. But he has to go deeper into the woods to find like the cure or something. It's set in the Andes. It's like a horror movie. It's from Argentina in 2012. La Rana Vampiro, which is a cool name also, but it just says The Vampire Spider. But at least it's different. My story seems to be different than this. Like I wanted to say in the last Vampyr's Echo story, I wanted to write a new mythology for vampires. Because vampires are usually associated with bats. I wanted, like, there are, vampire spiders. I wanted, something different, a different mythology to create around vampires. And also this could be if like the story when you have a story set in present time, you have the past, like this could be referenced with like the Nosferatu story. And Nosferatu was a stowaway on the ship. His coffin was on the ship. And that's how he came to a new land. So like the jumping spider, the vampire, what did I call it? The Evarcha Vampyr, the jumping spider, could be holding host to an actual vampire. But it could be a stowaway on the ship. That's how I can come to different lands and all that stuff in the past. Same thing as Nosferatu. But yeah, that's my Vampyr Evarcha story. I don't know if I'll add to it. I kind of like the conflict that I came up with, referencing that real life unsolved mystery where basically my character is connected to all these murders because the vampire takes the full shape. He hunts at night and my character doesn't realize it. And he like stupidly is connected to all these actual murders and he's being hunted and he doesn't know why. But he soon figures out what he's host to and all that stuff. So that'd be the conflict. And like I said, the resolution is my character figures out some way to like put himself in a coma to basically keep the vampire within him. So it won't. So it's basically stuck what's inside of him. But of course, like I said, you have that end shot where the vampire takes over fully. Cut to credits. But yeah, that's my vampire story. If you're okay with spiders, I hope you listen to it. Thanks for listening. That was a quick one. It's February 2025. I'm starting to roll out more ideas. I want to roll out more ideas. I should say I've been writing a lot. And bringing back older ideas. One of the big overarching ideas I do, if you're ever looking for my older stuff, the origin of this podcast was called Stop Watching The Office, where I would push myself to watch new things so I wouldn't rewatch The Office over and over again. And that turned into a podcast called Stop Watching, where I try to create stuff, basically what I'm doing now. And I didn't continue with it. But the way I ended that one, I wanted to do this bigger story that was set kind of in 1950s Miami Beach, where there were all these kind of prohibition type underground LGBT, queer, trans, drag shows that would go on around with, people who were here as immigrants, people here were hiding, that were working in these clubs and bars and restaurants and all this stuff. But then they would have these like prohibition type shows really late at night. And it was going to be multiple stories that built up, this one big Miami Nights story. That's how my older show ended. I wanted to do it as like actual written stories. The first one I did was called Yuri Sits Alone. It was a short story I did for this contest that I didn't win. But one of my goals this year, or one of the things I want to do, is rewrite that. And that's going to be the first story to kind of be the compilation, or whatever that word is. I can never say that word. The smaller story, smaller essay, short story that builds up a bigger story. So that's going to be an overarching thing. I will put on the website. I have a website, dumbtestlate.com. I will put the original Yuri Sits Alone story as I have it now. It's a really short story. It was like I forgot how it was worded, but it was like under 1,500 word short story contest. But I will put that on the website under the new title I have for this, because the original one was called Miami Nights, which I hate that name, but it was like a placeholder. The new name I have that I came up with is called Bona Noche. So if you ever go to my website, I'm going to start putting all those story ideas, all those writings, starting with Yuri Sits Alone under that, and whatever this turns into. A sneak peek, the next story, like I said, there's going to be smaller stories that build up the bigger story. It's going to be called Killer Queens. I don't know if I'm going to do a actual podcast episode of it. But you never know. I probably will, because I do like using this podcast as a way of stream of consciousness of getting, my thoughts and my creativity out. But yeah, if you go to my website and you're looking for it, it's going to be under Bona Noche, because that's the name I kind of have for this story idea, which is kind of right now separate from the story ideas that I do for this podcast. But I will end it there. Thank you so much for listening. It's 2025. I hope you're being good to yourself, being good to others, surviving, creating, thinking, loving, learning, growing, and not doom scrolling or thinking too dark about things. Yeah, it's probably dark times if we're honest with ourselves, but this is the time where creatives, nice, great, loving people need to shine more. And hopefully you're doing that. So I'll end it on that. Thanks for listening. I'm still Kirk. It's still Dumb Test Slate. We'll still keep moving forward. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.